Hi, everybody. Parshas Sisa, a powerful, powerful parsha. I was tempted to do a short video on this, and I just decided there was too much goodness here. We had to go all in. So I hope you enjoy. Um, this parsha has the Cheta Egel, but before we even have the Cheta Egel, we have the Machatzis Hashekel on the very start of the parsha, the Machatzis Hashekel, the half a shekel that every Jewish person was asked to bring to Moshe, and this would be their contribution to the karbanos, and also it was to be mechaper, it was to atone for the Cheta Egel, which is incredible because in the parsha it comes before the Cheta Egel, as we know, hikdim refuah lamake, that we have a rule that Hashem um, always presents the refuah, the healing, the salvation, the solution before even the challenge itself. So here we have, even before we get into the Cheta Egel, we have the sin of the golden calf. We already have this idea so central to the parsha of the Machatzis Hashekel, the giving of the half of the shekel, which will then actually be a atonement for the golden calf. So it's already in there right away. So if somebody asks you, what's this week's parsha about, and you jump to Cheta Egel, well, you're missing the greater context of the parsha, which is the kapara. It starts with the kapara already, the possibility for atonement. And after the Cheta Egel, we have Moshe pleading on behalf of the Jewish people, and we have that Hashem does ultimately forgive them, and not only does he forgive them, but he gives Moshe Rabbeinu the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, the 13 attributes of mercy, showing that who I really am is a king of rachamim and loving kindness and patience and mercy, and that's who I am. And of course, that gives way for the kapara, the possibility of atonement and connection to Hashem forever and ever, which is why Yom Kippur falls on the day that Hashem says to Moshe, Salachti kidvarecha, I have forgiven, like you said. So you've been pleading on me to forgive them in a more authentic and wholehearted way, so to speak. And Hashem does agree to that. And that day is Yud Tishrei, which then we have Yom Kippur every year on that date, which is the perfect day for this atonement, and also the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. When does Hashem reveal to Moshe Rabbeinu the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, these 13 attributes of mercy? He reveals it in the month of Elul. In the month of Elul, the last set, Moshe was up for 40 days and 40 nights 3 times. And the third time, what I'll tell you quickly, the first time was after Matan Torah. He was getting the Torah from Hashem after Matan Torah, and the first set of luchos. He comes down, sees the Cheta Egel, breaks the luchos, takes care of what needs to be done to fix up what was going on over there, and goes back up the mountain but 2 days later, and for another 40 days, is pleading with Hashem to forgive the Jewish people. And actually, he pleads with them the first time around before he even gets down, before he sees for himself what happened. And the second time around, Moshe Rabbeinu is getting the second luchos from Hashem. I mean, he carved it out this time. It wasn't as directly from Hashem, but Hashem then endowed it with it's luchos power, shall we say. And after those 40 days brings them down. And the third set of 40 days is Rosh Chodesh Elul to Yud Tishrei, which is the 40 days. I know, sorry, Rabbi Simon Jacobson, you have 60 days, but this is the 40 days of Elul, and then the first 10 days of Tishrei, which is the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah. And these 40 days is when Hashem reveals to Moshe the 13 attributes of mercy, which is why that is a time of Hashem's divine mercy upon us, and which is why we get into the whole Hasidic discourse of Hashem is the king, there's the king in the field in the time of Elul. Hashem is revealed to us in a special way during the month of Elul, but not in a revealed way that like Shabbos and Yantif, but more like a king who's then in the field. So he's more in the mundane, the mundanity of a weekday of regular life, but Hashem is with us and present in a special way in that time, because it is a time every year that the 13 attributes of mercy are revealed during that time. So that was all very digressing. It's not the topic I wanted to talk about. What I want to talk about is, but I think the point is, it's giving us context for this parsha, that when we think about this parsha, it shouldn't be Chet Ego. It should be, wow, our connection with Hashem is so powerful that even the Chet Egel, even such a crazy event of Chet Egel and disconnecting from Hashem in such a strong way, that right after they got the Matan Torah, 40 days later, they're already going to such low places, that there is always possibility of connection and atonement. And that is really the main theme of this parsha, which is why Sisa means to lift up. To Sisa is to lift up. Sisa. So it's that the Jewish people, as much as we look at this parsha and we're like, oh wow, they're getting lower, right? They're going lower. They're going down. Really, the essence of the parsha is an uplifting, that all our falls should be our challenges and our falling, and even, our big fallings and our big mistakes are really an opportunity to dig deeper and reveal our close connection with Hashem, and to go, as we say in Chassidus, Yerida Litzorach Aliyah, a descent for the purpose of ascent. So a descent, there's no purpose of a descent in this world, because it's all about getting closer to Hashem. So what's the purpose? Meaning, there's no descent for the sake of a descent. The purpose of a descent is for us to then pick ourselves up and get closer to Hashem. So what is it that I want to explore here? The Machatzis Hashekel is something that I've always looked at and learned from it. The Machatzis Hashekel means that you're half. You are not whole. You are not complete. You are just a half. And I was really looking at it and exploring it and trying to learn it this week with new eyes. Because I've learned a lot recently about how each of us are whole, and we are so worthy, and we are whole as we are. So I was trying to wrap my mind around, are we half? Are we whole? Are we half? Are we whole? And then I discovered from really digging into this Sisa, into this idea, that that's actually exactly what it's saying. So let's explore this together. So first of all, every mitzvah in the Torah we're meant to do in a whole, complete way, in a beautified way, with shleimus, tamimus. And so it's very strange when you look at this week's parsha and you say, wow, here's a mitzvah that is meant, it's meant to be half. It's meant to be incomplete. And how could that be? And not only that, but when you look at the pasuk, it says Zeh yitnu Machatzis Hashekel. So they should give this Machatzis Hashekel, this half of a shekel, Esrim Geira Hashekel. So what is the shekel? The shekel is 20 geira. So the amount of a shekel is 20 geira. And then Machatzis Hashekel Trumala, but they should give half of this shekel. So first of all, it emphasizes again this machatzis. Okay, but also, if it's going to tell us that this whole math equation, right? So it's going to tell us, so you're supposed to give a half. A whole shekel is 20, but just give a half. So the Torah is like asking us to do math. Like, okay, well, if a whole shekel is 20 geira and you want us to give half, so we should be giving 10 geira, right? Okay, basic math. But then why not just say that, right? 10, as we know, first of all, it's a whole number. It's a complete number. And also 10 represents wholeness in many ways. So Hashem created the world with 10 utterances and many more examples where in Torah, 10 represents a wholeness. So if you have the possibility, Torah, to give us a command, a mitzvah, and you can present it in a incomplete way, or you can present it in a whole way, wouldn't it have preferred to present it in a whole way, it could have just said 10 gera. So obviously there has to be some deep, important message by it emphasizing and specifically going with this incomplete way of writing it and asking us to do it in this incomplete way, right? The emphasis is not that, oh, everybody give 10 gera. Great. Everybody comes with their 10 gera coin. But then you would have missed this whole idea of half. So the point is to give a half a shekel to experience this halfness. What is this halfness? Okay. So first of all, let's understand that the Machatzis Hashekel itself, Chazal teaches us, came, as we mentioned, as a kapara for the Chet HaEgel. So as a kapara, an atonement for the sin of the golden calf. Okay. So therefore, this idea of half has to be something that specifically rectifies this chet. What is the Chet HaEgel? First of all, the Chet HaEgel was avodah zarah, right? Idol, as we usually call it idol worship, but it's not just idol worship. It's avodah zarah means the service of strange. Zara is strange. So any strange service. So avodah zarah really is any avodah service of ours that we invest ourselves in that is other than God. Any, right? Lo Elokim achirim. You shouldn't have any gods other than Hashem. You shouldn't put your energies and your avoda, your work, and your mentality and the way and your what you give credence to and what you give power to anything but Hashem. So Manis Friedman has a lot of great videos of how there's so many avodah zaras in our society. Whether it's pop culture, the sports, money, of course, is a big one. These are things that people serve, and they their whole lives are revolved around these things, as if that is what's important in life, right? That's what is giving them, that's what's going to give them, I'll put it in there, give them worth, right? By connecting to these things, or give them koach, give them meaning, purpose, and they're missing the point, of course. But also we can be serving ourselves, right? Anything, if we're serving ourselves and we see ourselves as the center of the world, and we see ourselves as all powerful, and that I can suffice on my own, and that my sense of meaning and purpose and every what I'm looking for in life is coming from myself. That also is a form of avodah zarah. So what is avodah zarah? It comes from pirud. Pirud means separation from Hashem, of course, right? And the source of separation is a feeling of yeshus. Yeshus is isness. Yesh, yesh, mashuhu, there is. Yesh literally means there is. So it's a feeling of isness, of our selfhood, of our selfhood as if it's its own existence. And this doesn't just mean selfish, although it definitely can translate into selfishness, but even the experience of ourselves as our own entity, as our own being, separate from God, is an experience of yeshus, feeling ourself as its own existence. And when we feel that we are our own existence, that gives way to a feeling, of course, of separation from Hashem. We don't feel this reliance on Hashem. We don't feel how our existence is tied up with Hashem. We don't feel how Hashem is literally breathing life into us at every moment, and now, as we will see further, how united we are with Hashem, but rather we see ourselves as separate from Hashem. that then gives way to avodah zarah. And remember, avodah zarah is not just like idol worship of the past, but it's the ability to put our energies in our life to anything other than the purpose for which we were created, right? Anything other than a God-centered reality. That would be also avodah zarah. And of course, the possibility of chet, of being able to do a chet, a sin, which is literally disconnecting us from Hashem. That is only possible when we see ourselves as separate from Hashem. If we saw ourselves as one with Hashem, then we would never want to distance ourselves from that reality, because that's distancing ourselves from our own true reality. And of course, Tanya goes into that in length, but let's leave it at this for now. Therefore, if avodah zarah is rooted in feeling separate from Hashem, which is rooted in the sense of yeshusness, of sense of selfhood, selfness, then the tikkun, the spiritual rectification for avodah zarah, must be the recognition of the unity of God, the recognition of how God's unity, He Himself embraces and encompasses the entire world, all of creation. Now, when you think of that and like you meditate on it, like, oh, the entire world is encompassed within Hashem. The entire world is embraced by Hashem. The entire world is, what it really is God, breathing life into creation at every moment, and you can like get into this like whole spiritual experience of it. But then we can completely miss the fact that that includes me. That includes me. If God if the entire creation is simply in the context of Hashem and exists within Hashem, again, lots of Tanya there, Shar Yichud ve'emuna, which is all about God's unity and how ein od milvado, there is nothing but Hashem. But if that's the case, that includes me, that I do not exist outside of God. I do not exist outside of God. I myself, my existence is the source of my life, and my existence is as I am connected with Hashem, which is, of course, why we know Torah is called the book of life. Torah is life. Why? Because all life is Hashem, and Hashem is, of course, united. Torah is united with Hashem. And so when the more we're connected with Torah and a Torah perspective on life, and of course, how Torah asks us to guide our life, the more we are connected with life itself. The more united we are with the true existence of the world, the true reality of the world, which is Hashem. So when we see ourselves and our very existence, our very life force as connected with Hashem, that negates the entire possibility of avodah zarah or chet in general. And again, Tanya shows how every chet is like a little bit of an avodah zarah, exactly because of the reason we're explaining. That anytime we're able to do an avera, we are basically saying that we are separate from Hashem, right? So that's a little bit, that is avodah zarah, to see anything as other than Hashem. So, okay, how does this tie back into Machatzis Hashekel? Well, the Machatzis Hashekel is there to teach us just that. That on our own, we are not a complete existence. On our own, we are not whole. We are very much lacking. And when we ask what is my worth? What is my value? Where does my worth lie? Well, the answer is, the Torah gives us an answer that the Machatzis Hashekel is meant to teach us that on our own, our worth is not complete. We are not whole, but rather because we have what? Because we have no existence of our own. We don't have a complete existence on our own. Rather, where does my worth lie? What is the source of my worth and my value? When I am connected with Hashem. In the context of my closeness with Hashem, my unity with Hashem, I am whole. This to me was a whole new way of seeing this Sika. Because in the past, I have learned this over and over again. I've taught it, I've written it up, I've explained it. Oh, Machatzis Hashekel means that I'm half. But I think we've got the emphasis all wrong. Machatzis Hashekel isn't about thinking of ourselves as half, but rather recognizing what makes us whole. That when I remember that I myself, who am I really? What is my essence? I am a chelik elokami mal mamish, again, Tanya. I am a part of God above, literally. That is what my essence is. My essence is literally a part of Hashem. When I get comfortable with that being who I truly am, I am whole. I am whole. I am worthy. I don't have to look for worth anywhere else because I have it already within me. I am whole because I carry a part of Hashem in me. So yeah, if I'm going to deny that part of Hashem within me, if I'm going to think that I'm separate from Hashem, well, I'm going to end up feeling very incomplete. I'm going to end up experiencing a very great lack of worth and lack of wholeness. And that is honestly what millions of people are experiencing. And, all of us experience to some degree when we think of ourselves outside of the context of our essential worth that is rooted in our godly soul. What happens? What are we experiencing without that? Well, we think that our worth is rooted in, I don't know, our looks, our grades when we're in school and young, when we're older, maybe how many degrees we got, how much success, our bank account, how much money, how many houses we own, I don't know, how many vacations we go on, maybe what our talents are. And when we tie our worth to these very limited things and these things that we think come from ourselves and our own success, that's one thing to debunk, to recognize that all our success and any qualities that we have, well, where do they actually come from? They come from Hashem. So that's one thing to recognize. But even without that for a moment, to realize, to pin our sense of wholeness and our sense of worth on any of these external things leaves us feeling worthless at times. Because what if I have a bad hair day? What if I don't do well? What if I get fired? What if I'm struggling in some way? What if, I didn't have a good day in my parenting and I tie my worth to being a good mother? Anything, right? That we tie our worth to is going to end up failing us. Because at times we're going to fail in those areas because we're human. And then we're going to feel worthless. We're going to feel like garbage. We're going to feel awful. And we've all experienced that in some way. But when we recognize that I am not my own entity of my own, my worth is not tied to my self definitions of my own worth. My worth is not defined by how I think of myself. My worth is not defined by my human qualities, my human failings, my human ambitions, my human success or failure. My worth is tied to the fact that I am one with Hashem. That's what it means that we are half. It doesn't mean that we're half. It means that we are whole with Hashem. And how are we connected to Hashem? Not that there's me and there's Hashem. And when I do a mitzvah, oh, we're like glued together, we're connected. But rather, this parsha is coming to teach us, this idea of Machatzis Hashekel is coming to teach us that it's half and half, which makes what? Which makes a whole. Which makes a whole. We are one with Hashem, which means our wholeness includes that we are connected with Hashem, that we are one with Hashem. We are whole as much as we see ourselves as a godly soul. That is what gives us our greatest worth, and which is why it never goes away. And we can always reach in and experience that worth when we bring Hashem into the picture. And we remember that our whole, we are whole, and we are infinitely, essentially, there's another good word, essentially, infinitely, and I'm missing the third word, valuable, infinitely worthy, essentially valuable, essentially worthy, because we could always come back to that we have a godly soul, that we are part of Hashem, we are one with Hashem, we are partners with Hashem in creation and in our being, right? Hashem and me are one. So what do we want to take from this? First of all, the Zohar says this pretty straight out. Yisrael v'kudsha brechu kula chad. Remember how we said before that the Torah and Hashem are one? So by tuning into the Torah, we're tuning into true life, which is, of course, Hashem, which is the source of all existence and the source of life. So the truth is that we don't only, we can look inwards for that as well, because not only is the Torah one with Hashem, the Jewish people are one with Hashem. That's what the Zohar says. Yisrael v'kudsha brechu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, kula chad, like echad. We are one. We are one with Hashem. And I think that this is what this really is about, is, again, not like we've always learned it, thinking of ourselves as incomplete, but rather I think it's about redefining our self-perception. How do I think of myself? Do I think of myself as a whole person that, I have my self-identity, how I think of myself, including my qualities, my talents, my success, my life story, my my likes and dislikes, right? Like, who are you? Well, I like X, Y, and Z. Like, why is that who you are, right? Or do I see myself as a godly soul in this world to make this world a better place, like a partner with Hashem in creation? And I can always lean into that. To realize that I am whole. And of course, when I realize that my identity, my self-perception is really very tied up with Hashem, then of course there's no room for hate. There's no room for avodah zarah, because my whole life is about serving Hashem, because that is just honoring who I am. It's being attuned with my truth, my essential truth, my essential self, my worth. And life becomes just about expressing that in every context. It's so funny because we usually think of like, there's me. This is, I think, where I was going. There's me and like who I am and my identity and my self-perception of who I am. And like Hashem fits into that. Spirituality fits into that. So like there's this part of me, that part of me, this part of me, that part of me. Oh, and also my spirituality. And like I connect to Hashem, however much I connect to Hashem, as like an aspect of my life. Rather than recognizing it's not that Hashem fits in the context of my life, but my life, meaning not only the story of my life, but my very life itself, my very existence, is within the context of Hashem. I am within the context of Hashem. In fact, I am one with Hashem. Have a beautiful, beautiful Shabbos.